So we have two things left. We have this very exciting talk by Vlado about React Native, and then we're going to do the culmination of the react-not-a-conf that Krasi is basically going to be very responsible for either being very successful or total fail.
I have no idea.
But remember, no matter what happens, it was intentional. This is not a conference. Okay. Are we ready?
Okay. Hi, I'm Vlad.
Wait.
Why?
I have an introduction.
No,
Wait.
no. They know
So,
me.
I really want to say a few words about Vlado. I made my homework. So, I was asking Radu what exciting I can say about Vlado, and he said so many things, like super talented, smart guy, and so on. But I said that. But one thing I remember, so they worked together at Product Hunt. So one thing I remember from all the stories that Radu told me was that just in 1 year, Vlado was doing iOS, Objective-C, Swift, then went to Web, Ruby, React, and now is doing React Native, and very proficient in all of those. So, yeah, round of applause for Vlado.
Wow. Yeah. So I'm Vlado. On the back of my t-shirt, everybody can see it. But actually, you can find me with the Vladimir handle. It's a long story, completely different guy. But I'm also active on Twitter, on GitHub, and Medium. So, as you thought, I work on Product Hunt with Radu. Product Hunt was acquired a year and a half ago. Does somebody know the name of the company that acquired Product Hunt? Okay, one winner. You get a candy. Okay. So yeah, it was. Ti ne jedeš slatko. Yeah, so let's get with a quick background about the project I've been working. So I've joined Product Hunt in 2015. And at that time, actually, we released the version 2.0. I was working with Radu on it. It was pure Objective-C. So only iOS project, no Android. At this time, we didn't have resources to do that, so we didn't care about it, to be honest. And we were working, very hard on the project. And in 2016, starting the migration between Objective-C and Swift. At this time, we were 3 developers working on the iOS project. Still Android was neglected, nobody cares about it. But actually users started asking us, okay, do you plan at least to release Android because a lot of people use it? And we sat down and it was, okay, yeah, you want to be on as many platforms as you can since we're a free service, so it's normal to be everywhere, to retain the users. So we asked ourselves, okay, what about Android, right? And metrics are pretty clear. So we are 77% of the users actually on Android. Yeah, we are a San Francisco startup, so almost everybody was with iPhones there. The hype is like that. But however, we cannot neglect that people. And we asked our question, one question: should we start with native or React Native? So something very, very important about native is that you cannot go very fast. You have different teams. These teams are working, catching up the features, catching up the web the whole time, because we have like 8 developers on web and 1 iOS. It was pretty much the picture at this time, and we stopped working on the iOS. I was moved to, as Jenny said, I was moved to the web team because. They didn't believe on the mobile, but after a while, we actually saw that we should have a native applications. It's quite important. Users are three times more active on native. On native applications, you retain them. It's quite easy. So the choice was very easy. Already, a lot of our front end was on React, so React Native was go-to technology at this time. But there are some pros and cons about the technology itself. So let's start with the pros, because I think it's more important. The whole team, as I said, can maintain code base and contribute. I have colleagues that ask me, well, can you implement that? Because it's already on the web, people want it. And actually, there's a lot of technical time to implement it, because on the web it's very easy. With React, you have flagbox, but on the iOS, you have very terrible way to add UI. So it was very, very hard at this time. The second important thing was is cross-platform, something that we wanted to achieve. As you see, 77% of the Androids are actually, it's very big percent, and you can retain a lot of users and increase the user base, so something that every startup is trying to achieve. And the third theme is compile to native code. So most of you remember that initially a lot of people tried to do web view applications on the native devices. It doesn't work very well. It just doesn't work actually, and people feel the difference between these two ones. So that's the biggest benefit to the React Native in my opinion. The other one is existing native and web logic. Let's start with that if you have an existing project and for example iOS project, you can easily just integrate it. It's super easy. React team did a marvelous job on this one. You can just bridge it and that's it. So you have it. And yeah, it's easy to start with. You can start migration, the settings migration, for example. So it's kind of good go-to place initially. But the other important thing is that we have a lot of filters, sorting algorithms on the web, and you can actually just copy paste it. You can copy paste the tests too, because they support child module. So it's pretty awesome. I've stole the Rados code all the time, and I was pretty cool about it. So that's another good thing. And the other one is speed up development, because basically building UI with React Native is super fast. Does anybody have React Native experience first? Okay, you have 3x there because you have 1. Vlado, you're sleeping, dude. Can you raise your hands again, because he fell asleep a little? Okay, 1. Come on. Right here. He have 1. We're limited here. Sorry. No, you have 2. Somebody else? React Native? No. No. 1 there. Okay. Native experience, Android or iOS? No. Okay. You're cutting my time here, you know. Okay. Okay, so next let's continue with the cons, because every technology has a cons. The first one is not a mature technology. Seriously, it's not a mature technology. They say it's production ready, but I have a ton of exceptions, and they're bad. You know, they're pointer exceptions, out of memory exceptions, the kind of things you cannot handle. So they broke my production code with not supporting rounded corners for the images. So it's some kind of retain cycle, and just crashed on the production, and people was furious, and Apple usually approve 3 days some build, so you cannot, you know, deliver fast there. The other one is still we have a smaller community. There's a couple of awesome libraries. Most of the libraries actually work on React Native, but if you are talking for UI libraries, it's not that great at this point. And the problem is, for example, for simple carousel, if you're native, there's a ton of solutions. But the problem is that on React Native, there's no solution, or if there's a solution, it's not very well supported and doesn't have a lot of contributors, so it's very buggy. So that's the other one. And the third one is still need a native devs. I needed to learn Java in order to support Android, and I like it a lot. And still I have a lot of fights with the compiler in iOS, because in the end of the day, it compiles to native code, so it's a kind of hack, you know. And yeah, Okay, what's next? Oh, something very important that I've started the project. I've saw a lot of blog posts about when you start your React Native project, start with the platform-specific stuff like Android UI and iOS UI. No, no, don't do that. You just start with 0 lines of platform-specific code. It's that simple. Don't waste your time on something that is at this point a mock-up. You know, it cannot reach the production, and in most cases, in my experience, you have one UI, and in the end of the day, it's completely different when you finish up the project. So, for example, here's the Pro Hunt with the 2 teams, night team and day team, and the only difference is bottom border on Android. Pretty much that's it. So in the end of the day, you have design language that's in your company. So it's kind of more important. And the other thing is handled by React itself, like React navigation supports the transitions between the screens. So yeah, that's 0 lines for you. And let's continue with something that I think is the core of the talk. It's structure of the project, something that is being neglected from a lot of people, but actually it reflects your patterns, your boilerplate, so you definitely should check it. I like that quote: if you can describe what you're doing as a process, you don't know what you're doing. And it's kind of true, because the way you add new feature, complete new screen, actually reflects on your code base and reflects on the way you integrated the whole framework. So in our case, this is a screenshot of the sidebar. If it's Atom, it's not Vim, okay? I use Atom. So you have, we have one source. It's, wait a second, where's the pointer here? The red button? Okay. We have components, we have library, middlewares, modules, operation teams, types and utils. Pretty standard stuff. For me, the most important two are components and modules, since they build up your application. Like, let's start with the first one. Let's start with the components. Rad mentioned earlier about how you should isolate your components, but overall, I think there's kind of 4 types of the components. Let's start with the first one. It's a general components. What I mean by general components are components that you wrap your code base. Every single screen is wrapped into your container. Like, you use it everywhere, and it's kind of isolated. So adding the team here, for example, team feature, it was quite easy because the code base was all, the component was all over there and used by every single screen. The second one is wrap third-party libraries. I know that one is a pain, but actually, if you use third-party library for your UI, you're gonna need to wrap it, because at some point you're going to change it. I'm pretty sure about it. So, for example, list item is provided by React Training. They have that awesome UI stuff that really helps you to speed up the development. But in the end of the day, they do a break exchanges very occasionally, and I don't want to go across the code base and just update it. The bonus part here is that you actually can have your styling inside the component and just reuse it without a lot of code. The third very important thing for the components is express domain concept. What I mean by expressing the domain concept is a component can do a work. So I like to see how components are isolated from the modules, from the system, and just drop it somewhere, and they just do their job, and they just work. In this case, we have it's a header user spotlight, but still it shows that we have the teams, we have avatars and title, and in this case, you can pass other text and be displayed like Vladimir's collections and stuff like that. So it's pretty handy, and this is the core here in the navigation for me. Okay. Handling the UI. Oh, yeah, handling platform-specific UI. That's something that I mentioned earlier. I don't have any platform-specific UI. I have different appearance, but doesn't have different indexes. I'll tell about more in a second. Let's start with the simple component. I did a small new bootstrapped project. So we have just simple component wrapping the text. What if you want different appearance on Android, for example, different font size, because they use different font size on Android than in the iOS? The first version is to actually add it in the style sheet. So you have platform, spread it into the style sheet, and do it like what's for iOS, especially for iOS, and what is for Android. So this is pretty clean, but in this case, this works only if you have the same UI for both platforms. So, but what about if you want to have different UIs? I had case like that before. The case was on Android doesn't support nested scroll views, and I needed to have different appearances for post details for Android and for the iOS. The solution here from React Native that's provided from React Native actually is having different indexes, and when on compile time, you take the different index. So you can have index Android and index iOS. So it starts pretty clean. The problem is that you have code duplication there in most cases. Since it's components, lowest level in your system UI-wise, you're going to have same logic here, but it's pretty okay if you have so very drastic UIs there. Okay, so let's go back to the project and see what about the other type, the modules. Some of you use modules as screens, the other call them views. It's pretty much the same thing, but for me, the difference is that the module is super isolated. Actually, we're on Redux based, so our logic for the actions, for the reducer, tests, everything is in one folder. It looks very clear in my opinion. You have here actions, you have constants, header is other UI actually that goes to the screen. You have selectors and utils. And let's see the flow actually adding new feature. You have screen, so that's the fundamental. And when user makes some action, actually we are going to the action. You know? So next step is in the reducer. And both of them share the same thing as the constants. So, okay, that pretty much looks like exactly like the Fox pattern here, you know, Redux pattern. So it's pretty clear, but the difference here is the selector. Actually, in most cases, you're going to change that data before displaying it. And when we're talking about modules, the other very important thing in the mobile application is the navigation. Usually it's quite a big pain. In iOS, we've isolated the navigation and we've dispatched actions from everywhere. Hopefully, in React Native it's way better. They provide React navigation. It was initially made by the community, then React took it under their hood and continued development. The development, it's pretty stable. But something that you should know is that navigation actually is a module. Now you see why I call them modules, because in this case the navigation is not a screen. It wraps every screen on your application, so it's better to be called like that. Here's an example for the stack navigator. This is our base navigator. So we have root, we have login page, we have pager. It's a good example for different UI, different navigations based on the platform, because on Android it's going to crash the pager. So we have post navigator in Android, but on the iOS we have slick slider there. So it looks pretty clean and pretty obvious, but something that I really wanted to split into, because if you have an action, if you vote post, you're going to dispatch action to show this post screen at some point. But what if you are adding your navigation in Redux? It's completely different story, because in Redux actually you can handle that in the reducer. So for this example, you can see the login and the logout action. They actually restart the whole navigation stack there. So I know in the web, just refresh the page, but this is not the case here. So it's pretty clean solution here, and I really do like it. Oh, I thought it was a pause, but it was fun. Yeah, stop sleeping. Give an egg. Picture, no, 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 that flow. No, you're not going through it there. Okay, okay. Something that I didn't add to the slides because it's not production ready, and I'm ashamed of the implementation at this point. Actually, is navigating through the to the API actions. For example, if you dispatch vote user, you're going to navigate to the user screen. So you decouple the whole logic there, and it's still in its experimental phase. But I do like the you know the logic because you're dispatching one action there. If you see the debug there, you have a lot of actions like navigation starts navigation in the middle of navigation, navigation completes, loading, and ton of other actions. So we can navigate just with one action that is actually not navigation related. Oh, that was okay. The other thing in the React navigation actually is wrapping with Hawk actually can make your buttons not to care about the system. And for with that example, the navigation, the back button, it's a core of the application. It just dispatch navigation back action, but in this case, it's wrapped with navigation here. And yeah, thank you. I was super fast here. Any questions? And X?
You know how that goes. You're now invited.
Now the fun part. That's not the coding part. Now the fun part.
Yeah, finally. I get bored too.
Leren robot.
Oh.
Ah. Okay, now the fun part. The panel.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I have more eggs and
what are you doing upstairs? No joking. We will give you some privacy.
give them eggs then. Privacy with eggs? Is it a gas? Another one.
Good. Perfect. Thank you. What was that? Is there a fourth person to volunteer on the chair for questions?
Are you doing the questions? Okay. I feel like
I will get your egg if you don't mind. Thanks. So the topic is React Native. You go first.
So my first question, and I want to have a clear answer. Probably the answer is yes. Is it painful to work with Rado?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks. Okay. So the next one.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks. I now have 3. Okay.
Seriously? Give me one.
Yeah. So how different is React Native from React? I mean, I know that it's quite different.
No. It's super similar.
But is it really easy just if you have a React app which runs in a browser to just like port it in?
No. The components, main components are different. Like you have standard HTML on one side, and React Native they have like text, scroll view, the native items from the mobile platforms.
Okay.
So I think 15 minutes will be more than enough to run React Native if you do know React.
Oh,
The paradigm is the same there.
Okay, so it's basically the same then.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'll go with the next one if you don't mind. Okay. So how's the I could imagine building such app with React Native. How's the developer experience? I mean, if I have to produce an app for iOS and for Android, okay, I'm writing something in React Native, then what happens?
You go through the normal stages, you're super excited, then you start crying, then you're excited again, then you cry and add tests, you know, and then exception tracking.
Okay, that's interesting. Okay, and then
Please do.
yeah, and then how you test the? I mean, when everything is compiled and it's ready, how you test this thing? Because in the past I built some stuff for iOS, for example, and they have this like a simulator or something.
The key framework, I think.
Well,
How long it was ago?
I don't really remember, but I remember that I was running something and it was simulating the actual device.
Yeah.
So is there such a thing for React Native?
You can still do it native. But actually you can test with the renderer and on React Native to see if it's there on 3. But if you want to do acceptance testing there, it should go native. So
Okay.
not a good solution at this point, because when you compile, actually it compiles the native project. It's that simple.
So I don't need an actual device in order to...
No, you can go with simulator, but still you're going to need to sell some language. To know for example, Swift or Objective-C or Java.
Okay, okay.
That's the worst part. I do a manual testing there because I don't have time at this point to add it. I've just added the exception tracking and I was super angry at myself.
Okay.
Because we didn't have a good exception tracking for React Native, by the way. This is one of the biggest problems for me because for iOS and Android you have FabricKit. FabricKit actually is quite good for exception tracking. But when it comes to React Native, actually you have JavaScript bundle and they have the native code. And when it crashes in the native and shows the native crash from Fabric. Luckily, Sentry did an awesome job adding React Native support. Oh, we're going to change the battery, sorry. Do you want an egg? No. Okay.
Just take this one.
No.
Finish.
That's native code right now.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, okay.
I'm full with battery.
So, so how you do you have something like error tracking there? Because we use Sentry, or I guess they are
Sentry have a React Native integration right now, and it's pretty awesome.
Okay.
Really, I love it.
Yeah.
I see now where actually it crashes in the JavaScript code. Can you imagine that?
It's awesome.
Wow!
Really awesome.
Finally, it's not a Facebook handler in C++ for iOS now. Oh no! It's not that problem. I'm pretty sure that the problem is from me.
No.
In most cases.
I guess it's not only you. Okay.
You mentioned at some point that when you have a bug in your native application or your React Native application, you have to submit it again to the App Store. It will take 2 days, if you're lucky, because like the 2-day schedule is only like for like the high-profile apps. Like Apple really decides like, hey, it might just take a week to fix a bug
if they don't like it.
So there's like this whole movement in React Native land where you can like use a module that like where you can push code to all your clients. And have you thought about doing that? Like, or do you have any experience with that? Because we had problems with this as well, and we were like, okay, what if we just implement this code push stuff, and then we do have like this bug fixed, and but we saw like if you want to use it for like to push a new feature, Apple might not like that, so they might just take you out of the App Store. And I don't know, I would like to hear your take on that.
I've just heard a couple of solutions, but actually not experienced with it. It sounds like a good idea. My only concern is that Apple can reject you at some point by something like that. You know, the problem with reviews is that you don't have it on Android because you can release it instantly. It's that okay. You can fix your bugs instantly too. But with Apple it's completely different. We've been rejected for things that you cannot believe, you know, on the native apps. So it's not useful enough, for example. It's point of rejection. But overall, code push seems like a good solution. As far as I read, a lot of people think that almost there. Maybe we'll check it at some point. As I said, Apple can change their user agreement and just reject us from the store. That's the main concern.
Yeah, for me it's quite hard to ask you a question since I know the code base, and I'm actually all the interesting questions kind of embarrassing for us. So, how is the best way to start with React Native? Like I can imagine a lot of people get excited here about React Native. So, what's the best way?
I have a cool answer for that. React-native-init. This is the easiest way to start React Native. It's that it creates your first project.
Or create React Native app.
Yeah. But if you want to start React Native and you don't need any IDEs like Xcode or Android Studio, the best way is to go with Expo because actually it's quite time saving, but in my opinion it's not yet ready. And if you have, imagine, if you have something native specific, for example, if you, at some point you decide to support audio or video, that's it. You should eject your app from Expo and start to working on native level. So when I initially started working on the project, I was okay. I'll go with Expo because we're web-based application, REST API, nothing special. But actually, at some point, we do have podcasts, and we're kind of thinking to revive them, and I was, oh no, we're going to have the audio player.
No, we are thinking to revive it. That's the reason I'm making like this.
Yeah, we can easily support it now. You can just add dependency and port it to React Native, to the JavaScript and work on it. It's okay.
Yeah. And what is the cool places to learn? Like, yeah, it's a nice thing to like start command and start coding, but how do you approach? What you think is the better approach to like start learning about it? Like, what was the resource which helped you? Like, okay, I want to know how to do, for example, this type of screen or this thing or that thing. React Native specific.
As I said, it's newer community and there's not a lot of resources about this stuff. Actually, the go-to place initially is the documentation. Of course, it's not a good place, for reference. But in Medium, you have that. Yeah. What's that? Seriously?
Yeah, somebody for
I
the
think my
audience
Google
says
hates me.
the site
Check
reactnativeexpress.com.
I didn't know
That's
that.
a nice thing. Everybody
Yeah.
learns something today.
I'm Googling right now.
By the way, another question.
Yeah. You with X?
Should I throw you an egg? No, I would throw you. I want to throw the egg once. Yay.
So
Looks cool.
okay. So maybe I know the answer, but if you want to avoid the releases in the App Store, why don't you use something like WebView and have standard websites?
I know they record me and shouldn't say that, but WebView applications just suck. It sucks. And because WebView is too far away from your experience, your native experience. Do you remember Facebook initial versions on iOS? Yeah, people was about to stop using Facebook. Can you imagine that? How powerful this can be? So if you want to frustrate users, you go on WebView. I think one of the best migrations I saw, we talked to you yesterday, is the Instagram migration from WebView to React Native. It was a pretty cool topic. In Medium, they have blog posts about that. But don't go WebView, and you'll be okay. Yeah.
I think I can add something to that because it feels very tempting, but the App Store guidelines also say that if your application on your website and in your app, if it's like the same code, they would reject you. Because they're like, well, you can just use a website. You can like just guide your users to use your website. So they're like, there is no benefit for our App Store users to use your app, so we will just say no. And this is just one of the
It's valid
tons
case.
of reasons
Yeah, it's
why
valid
you get
case, by the
rejected in the Apple App Store.
They rejected the mock-up, by the way. The funniest thing, it's totally off topic, by the way, but I'm going to share it. The funniest thing with Apple is that I was working on the mock-up 2017, yeah, and we were speaking with Apple, and Apple was, we're going to feature, you know, I just added in the App Store, you will be featured. And the same time, when I submitted it, they rejected me with, that's a pointless app. I've did 20 other submissions adding new features, and they continuously rejecting me because in their opinion I don't have features that deserve to be on their desktop. No. Actually, it was simple menu bar app showing the top posts. I want to check how people will be engaged with that. Yeah. React Native probably will be on the web soon, so I'm excited to see some new applications based on React Native.
And the funny thing about that story was actually the other team was actually wanted to feature us at Newsworthy new app. And the other was saying, yeah, you're users, and the other, yeah, you are the cool app and you should be featured.
You understand that.
It's a very, like, we had this, remember the first rejection we get? When we, the product hunt, we show new products. And one of the products had an Android, an Android app, and they rejected us because we showed an Android app. And we got rejection about it.
Please remove it.
Remove the Android icon.
How we are going to remove the content? It's user generated, and they remove it. It's not for feature.
From the admin.
They rejected the release.
Yeah, the whole release.
Yeah, because you have Android content there.
Yeah.
It's a screenshot, for God's sakes.
And it's user-generated content. Yeah. And I mean, we do it the smart way. We just change the screenshot to not show the Android logo. We cut it out and put the screenshot back, and everything works. And I hope this is not. Yeah, this will be cut from the video. Okay.
Another egg there for a question. Vlado. No, it's not season. Yeah, for questions too. We still have a lot of eggs.
Thanks for the talk. Thanks. So I use Product Hunt, I think 2016-ish, 15, 16-ish.
Wow, more than me.
So as I remember, back then you didn't have an app yet on Android. As I remember.
Yeah, we didn't.
So there are a lot of third-party apps on the Android store. So I used them back then. And my question is, have you investigated that, what those developers did in their apps? And what the approach they are using to build their apps? And
yes, I did. Actually, there was one awesome Android app based on React Native. It's open source. So when I started the project initially, I've checked his implementation of the app. He was using MobX, by the way. And I was 50-50. Should I ask him, to give the repo, to save time? But actually, I didn't like so much MobX. And I was, okay, we should do Redux there. And started from scratch in the end of the day. But yeah, we occasionally chatting with people that do third-party apps. And they complain because they cannot vote and sign in. But this is a completely different story with this one. Yeah.
My question was something else, but I'm just going to ask, why do you guys hate MobX so much?
No, I don't hate it.
Huh?
Yeah.
Well,
it's not a hate.
Not that you hate it, but it just, I think it's a little bit better even than Redux, because you have less boilerplate, for example.
Yeah, so...
Yeah, true.
Can I answer that?
Yeah,
Okay, thank you. I mean, nobody hates anybody. We are all good people. We all like each other. I really like MobX, to be honest. Like, I was chatting with the founders like 2 weeks ago, the guys who work on MobX. It's a great library, but for me, MobX is a good library for isolating a single component and not so much an architecture. Like Redux enforces your application into a certain architecture, while MobX is more like a library for like a particular component or a small subtree of that component. It's more like utilitarian based, in my opinion. And also I don't like what most of the time is they work with a lot of mutations, and sometimes it's hard to like get the change. It's very good if you have like a smaller set of components, but for me Redux is a bit better when you think about architecturing the whole application.
Selfie time.
Yeah. Any other question?
Here you go.
Thank you. So I assume that if I have a web app, can I share the components with the React Native app? Is it some difficulties or restrictions or things like that?
The difference is in the component names, actually. You can share them, but in most cases you're going to spend more time to support them. So I was thinking about it initially. I just copy it, for example, post item to check out if I just change tags. You know, if I remove divs with views, if it's going to work. The problem is that you're going to copy the whole legacy at some point, and that was something because. I think our React frontend was introduced like year
2014.
Seriously? Okay, but we were still migrating at some point.
We are still migrating.
However, no. The quick answer is no. You're going to need to support both, and you're going to spend a lot of time on it. It's better to isolate them.
Yeah.
To have it separate on separate
So
platforms.
one thing you can like. Facebook said, like, and they're quite right, in my opinion, they don't share components, they share knowledge for how they do stuff. The only things you can actually share are high-ordered components which don't have any view in them. Just this new pattern emerging right now is renderless components and stuff like that. You can share those, like the ones which are your primitives, but not the one, for example, the buttons are different.
They meant to be different. They meant to be different on Android, and because you have raised buttons there, and the style guides are
and also the behaviors, the touch events, and all that.
Actually, Google reject us, and I'm working on to feature us, not the application. I'm trying to fix them, and they wrote to me and was, on what platform is that? Is this a Java application? I was no, because. The problem with React Native is that you're going to style every button, you know, with the ripple effect. You have it there for the new Androids. The problem will crash on the oldest phones that are, for example, Android 4 and 5 will crash if you have ripple with React Native. So you're going to handle that cases. But if you want to be featured and people to use it and to feel like they're in the same ecosystem, you should take a lot of time. I think that's the problem for the newer community. We don't have ready components. I'm that close to write a button that on Android have a ripple effect. In iOS, you know, just I don't know why you don't have it at this point. You have it too?
Yeah, we always have these like little weird components that abstract this away, this like weirdness in React Native land, and just feels like a pain. Like, why do we have to do this when you're like saying, okay, we are cross-platform, but then, only this little subset of actual components you can actually use cross-platform. It's like, it's up to you to choose. You're like, this is good, but then, it's like, the philosophy there has like holes. And
yeah, but still you can override them and, for example, stop the ripple effect, you have it by default. You spend a lot of time to do it right.
Yeah, also like depending on the mobile platforms, like one of the biggest issues, although you can correct me, I guess, is the navigations. The way you handle navigations in different platforms, because in Android you expect one thing, you have the not hardware but backbone button, back button. In iOS you have the software one, and all of that, like navigation and like those cores are a bit different.
Yeah, it's hell. Seriously,
do I finally get an egg?
Thank you.
Egg?
Yeah.
Okay.
Microphone and egg there.
So
I bought a lot.
hey. So I hear you're like there are a few questions like getting the components from the web part. Okay. Have you thought about going the other way around, like mobile first? So design the components to work for mobile, and then actually polyfill these to work on the web. For example, you have image, text, and other components that are just React Native. So have you thought about just polyfilling those for the web so that you can actually reuse components even if they have a view part?
First of all, the question was just for the egg, you know? The second of all, no, we didn't. It hasn't been discussed at all. No, we didn't think of. Maybe at some point. My main worry is that you have completely different screens. The behaviors of the different platforms should be kept like that, because in web you have a lot of space, you have small pointer, it's okay. But on the mobile you have completely different experience. I don't know. It's a good question.
Do you think React Native is a good platform to start if you don't have any native experience?
I do. And if you start without any native experience, but you do have React experience, go with Expo. It's completely different. You don't need IDs, it just works. So it's pretty magical. You're going to like it. As I said, if you're going to deep levels, it will be completely different story there. But for the beginners, I think this is the go-to way. I should check how it's, sorry. Yeah, you should definitely start with it. At some point, it's getting very weird if you go to native system because of the LLVM for Objective-C. So, yeah.
Any other questions?
Forex?
I have the best final question, by the way.
Come on, diabetes.
Hey.
No, I'll be the last question, don't worry.
Okay, so can I ask you, as a React developer, hey.
Yeah.
So as a React developer, what is the biggest problem that you can face in React Native that you don't face in React?
The UI.
The UI?
Yeah, the paradigm is pretty much the same. So it was the UI and the navigation itself. So
and not submitting to Apple.
Sorry, what?
Submitting to Apple, to the App Store.
Oh yeah. No, this can be a long talk for the submission and the problem with the other parties. But maybe some of the on the side project I was checking gRPC.
That's an after-party topic, by the way.
It's very popular talk right now. So. gRPC, and the problem is, for example, it doesn't have support for React Native because of the polyfill. But overall, nothing stops me, just the UI. And to be honest, I really do like React Native. I like it more than Objective-C.
That's not hard.
By the way, guys, I think we really need to organize the GDPR conference. It's a hot topic.
Yeah.
Don't spoil the announcement, come on.
Oh, sorry. All right, Rado, you go.
Okay, I'm the final question.
Oh, no.
Finally. Oh, and that's the best question.
Okay.
How do you handle big GIFs with React Native?
No.
Tell me about that. Tell me the story. I want to hear it again.
I'll go with that story pretty quick because I hate it. I think it was 2015 and we have a lot of memory problems in iOS because GIF technology is pretty outdated. Apple doesn't support it. The way they support GIFs is just pulling all images, okay them in memory, and just animates them. it was terrible because we have a lot of crashes. And ProHunt is, quite,
the land of the GIFs.
Let's see, yeah, San Francisco startup. So GIFs and emojis are quite popular. So we have a ton of GIFs. And can you imagine a list of GIFs? What can you do to your performance if you don't scale them down or add something, And we've crashed, so I've started working on Christmas. Thank you, Rado. Working on fixing that. So it turns out completely new library. In the end of the day, Facebook has working on the Pinterest library.
We started with the Pinterest library, right?
Yeah, it was fast image. No.
Pinned cache actually was because we were using it for...
cache is the cache layer.
Yeah, but we use it for cache layer.
We did that actually. It was
we started as a cache layer first.
On the CPU tick, you get the image, you get 10 more, show them, free the memory and get the new one, so it's pure hell. So go to the React Native, we had the same crash. So I fixed that problem on iOS and I had the same crashes when I started on React Native, and I was no. I was that close, to stop working on that project. Actually, you can get you can port them. Android doesn't have problems with GIFs. That's pretty awesome. But iOS still has. So you can port the library. What was the name of the library? Seriously?
I don't remember. I blocked it for my memory, to be honest.
It doesn't matter, but you can port the library and use it in your project. But here's something funny. I have a lot of crashes right now in production, and people was complaining on the iOS especially, and I was, why? And trying to debug, and see that CPU is going 300% when you open the app, just open the app, and I was, oh no. I've removed the whole UI and go step by step to see where the problem is, and it turns out that in React Native 0.55, rounded corners on images can just crash you on production. And I was, that's stupid. I've spent 3 hours, I was so mad, because the problem is they apply rounded corners on every single frame. They've changed that in their core. And I was, that's not right. Ask people with GIFs, Ask Airbnb, because they do native there.
Yeah. So actually one of the stories which Vlad forgot to mention, the first crashes we get were from GIFs who actually, when they expanded in memory and being like becoming big, they were taking like 2 gigs of RAM, those GIFs. And we have like 75 frames GIFs, 4 megabytes.
75 frames per second.
Per second
yeah,
GIF.
It's like
4
you
megabytes.
Can do a slow motion with that
Yeah,
thing.
I mean, it was a small movie. It actually was a great GIF. I actually wanted to put it on my slides.
I don't care about if the GIF is great, but still it's 75 frames per second and you're full HD there. And we'll show it in 880 thumbnail without scaling down.
Yeah, and iOS actually scales it up, then scales down, and actually...
And then the GPU goes crazy on the CPU, and you just throw away your phone because it will burn out.
Yeah, because it's burning, you throw it because it's on fire.
Damn, I didn't remember that. Yeah,
of course.
That's good.
I still have nightmares for that.
Yeah.
Every time I put GIFs on my slides, I'm like, okay, can I sing this on mobile?
Okay.
Guys, I really like the conversation, but I think I have to interrupt you because we are again running late in the schedule.
Finally!
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.